Alrighty, welcome to episode 206 of Tokwa's Ask Us Anything. As usual, it's been a pretty busy news week. At Tesla's Q4 earnings call, Elon Musk has confirmed plans to introduce a Tesla-owned fleet of cars providing a publicly available, fully unsupervised, full self-driving service in Austin, Texas in June this year and a similar service in California later this year. At the same earnings call, Elon Musk has all but conceded that Tesla will be providing free upgrades to all FSD-enabled cars fitted with Hardware 3 computers to the more powerful Hardware 4 architecture. The Western Australian State Government has inexplicably declared the WIEV network complete. This is in spite of 3 sites along the Nullarbor being under construction, several sites experiencing chronic reliability problems, and 2 sites subject to long-term vandalism, one of which is profoundly broken and been so for more than 6 months. At the announcement, Minister Whitby triumphantly declared that, quote, "Through our investment in the WIEV network, we have opened our state to EV drivers who can travel from Albany to Kalbarri or Perth to Esperance without the fear of range anxiety. That's good news for tourism in WA and a big reason why the network has drawn international attention." Backing up his minister's pronouncements, Premier Cook spruiked that, quote, "We want every Western Australian to get out and enjoy our state, including EV drivers." And that was this week's news. And I've got to say that I went to a lot of effort to read that last news piece with a straight face. But we'll discuss that later. Anyway, welcome to another episode of Tokwa's Ask Us Anything. And as is customary, if there is anyone who is new and is comfortable in doing so, please do unmute and say hello. Or perhaps a little bit later in the program. Alrighty, who wants to kick us off with a first question or comment? Oh,
We've probably got to hold back like you are. It's a bit daunting, isn't it, when you get throwing money around the country but not finishing off promises? Don't like it.
Yes. So just to reiterate and sort of expand on that news story, this is today's. On the left is today's screen capture from ChargeFox. Now, obviously, not all of these chargers are the WAV network locations, but actually most of them are. And you'll see, the government said it's complete, and I'll dig up Horizon Power's tweet about the highway as well in a little bit. But you clearly see 3 spanners, and that's because these 3 locations, Baladonia, Kaigurna, and Majura Pass, are temporary sites where they have temporary diesel generators hired from John Edwards, who is a legend among WA's fast DC charger community. And they have been hired because the actual proper chargers are not yet in place, and it's not actually known when they will be in place. But you'll also notice a little black icon here, and this is over Nyanyatara, and this one here is over Pardue Roadhouse. And both of those sites are offline. So that probably means they're not usable. Also, if you look at this image up here, this is Halls Creek. This charger has not been working for 6 months. It only ever worked for about 7 months before it was vandalized, and to date has not yet been repaired. This charger here is Derby, which the screen is broken, but the charger thankfully works. And there's also a charger in Fitzroy Crossing that the screen is broken and that charger barely works. And actually this here is the Pardue charger, which is unpowered, which is probably why, as we speak today, this icon is dark. And in fact, the icon shows that neither the DC nor AC chargers are online, which is actually a backward step from last couple of weeks. So I think is it Humphrey Appleby said something like it's very brave for a minister to do something. Well, it was very brave and frankly ill-advised for Premier Cook and Minister Whitby to boldly declare the WAV network complete. They effectively have planted a flag, declared victory, and walked off. And at this stage, there are no known plans to either augment the WAV network, expand it along the Great Northern Highway, nor to address the pressing and urgent maintenance and operations issues that this highway, which Minister Whitby proudly alluded to the Time magazine article that basically spruiked this network as one of the most significant sites in the world, which can so quickly descend into farce. And, you know, there are quite a few of us that are aware of quite a few EVs or owners of EVs who have had to get them towed at great expense to themselves to be towed away from WAEV network chargers that have been offline and not available. So yeah, it's a really weird place we're in at the moment. It really is. But anyway, that's what we've come across. Anyway, with that little bit of bad news, I see Chuck has joined us from the future, and maybe Chuck, you might have a little bit of better news as far as EV charging goes. But then, who knows? Then maybe Chuck might join us a little bit later. I think he's actually on the road. Oh no, here he is. There he is. No, he's on the road.
That's all right. No, I was just having trouble working my laptop. Haven't been on it for a week, so
You're a bit rusty, Chuck.
that's right. I've forgotten how it all works. No,
Very good.
yeah, I've actually got something that you might find interesting. Now I'm just going to paste a couple of pictures in the chat.
Oh, fantastic.
Now I'll just do the first one. Won't be a sec. Hang on. So this is not Western Australia related at all. Sorry, everyone.
No, but it's all about national. It's all about the national effort, Chuck. So it's all good.
That's it. So, if you look at that map, which will probably take a second or two to come through.
Yeah, sure. 2 seconds.
For a bit of background, for those who don't know, Harold gives me a lot of shit about places in Tassie that he's been that I haven't been.
So, I don't know why I would possibly do that, Chuck.
Right.
Why would I be so cruel?
That's right. So, starting from about a month ago, this is my Tesla scope map with new additions in different colours. So as you can see, I've made a bit of an effort to go to some of these southernmost extreme places that, Harold's been to Cockle Creek twice, I think. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes.
And once with a caravan, but I'm not boasting.
That's right. Yes. It's one of the hardest, not really hardest to reach places, but it's, if you were like me and you never drove on unsealed roads, it makes it a challenge. But as you can see, I had to adapt there.
Very good.
But there is a place, and I'm just going to try and find the picture. I was planning to get these pictures already in advance so I could. Oh,
actually, well, if you like, Chuck, maybe I can let you just do that sort of like in a more relaxed sense without urgency, and we can come back to you in a few minutes, perhaps once you've got that all prepared, if you like.
No, that's okay. I've just about got it here. I've just realised I posted everything on Facebook, so I can just grab things from there.
Yeah.
So.
Cool. Actually, while you're doing that, Mike's got his hand up, so I might just go to a question or comment from Mike. So Mike.
Go for it.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, I thought I'd give Charles a bit of a respite for a second. Hey guys, good to see you all again. I was on like before Christmas, and being retired now, I don't pay attention to calendars like some people do, and so I kept missing the meetings. I've watched them all on X, of course, and so I've got a collection of comments, and Harold, please shut me off if I'm rambling. So in no particular order, you may remember I purchased a second-hand from Tesla 22 Model 3, long range. And my summary now, I've been driving it for 6 months or something, since September or whatever that is. Look, I don't want to sound like one of the chosen few with you guys, but it really is an excellent vehicle, although it does have its faults, as we all know. It's very awkward for me because it's tempting me to potentially look at new vehicles, which from a monetary point of view is not financially brilliant for me, but I do enjoy the vehicle so much. So that's the summary. For example, I think back whenever it was, Harold, and again, just correct me if I'm wrong, but I seem to remember that you thought that the self-parking was not very good. Well, on this 22.3, and I should say I never use the ultrasonics. I use vision all the time because I find the ultrasonics useless. I have to park in a very tight garage, and in fact, I back up to the wall with a cushion on it, so it physically touches the wall. But the self-parking has worked every time without fail, and it's actually got better with the Christmas update. Without fail.
Do you have FSD, Mike?
No.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, I should say I have the enhanced autopilot,
Yes,
but not FSD. So it's what came with the car was the enhanced autopilot and the speed boost, would you believe? Which is crazy, but anyway, that's another story. And I found it worked flawlessly. So it's interesting how we have different experiences, although I think you drive a Y, Harold, so maybe it's different in the 3 for some reason.
No, it's actually the same. And look, I must admit, over the Christmas update, I've got FSD, but I don't think that makes any difference unless someone else can, Paul or someone else can comment. I think you might get the same parking features with enhanced autopilot as you do with FSD. I could be wrong. Actually, Mike, you'll know because when you go along a whole lot of a whole lot of perpendicular parking spots, do you get to give it? Do you have are you presented with a choice of
But
multiple?
now I am. I wasn't before.
Yep. Okay, so that new version I found works pretty well.
Yes.
It's still slower than I can park.
Correct.
So, sometimes if a car's nearby, you sort of go, oh, look, I'll just take over. But I found the perpendicular parking didn't suck, and the parallel parking was fairly good.
I must say I've never parallel parked. But I find beforehand you could choose the parking spot, but it didn't like, how you get P in a bunch now. There was only one. It said, where do you want to go? And I picked that, but it worked every time. It never failed on me before the update, and now it's even better. So I just thought I'd pass that on to people who may be looking at an older vehicle with, what is it called? Hardware 3.
Yes.
So the other thing, I think we talked about charging. Some of you may remember I didn't have a charging cable, and I was charging for free at the old Karen Up shops. But in their infinite wisdom, as some of you may have known, they stopped doing that, and ChargeFox went over, and I haven't been for ages, but 30 minutes free, I think, and then the rest is like normal house charge, 30 cents a kilowatt or something like that. So consequently, I got myself a UMC, and Tesla were a bit vague about when I might get one. So I went up to Fearless Bunnings at Joondalup and bought one there. And the beauty about buying from Joondalup is you get $550 flyby points, which my wife, who does all this thing, thought was great. So you get a little bonus there.
Excellent.
So
And it costs you no more,
really
of course.
looking. Sorry?
And it costs you no more. It's the same price as.
Oh, yeah, same price. Although they had a stand there and there was none left. And I thought, I've missed out. People were... Because there was sort of a bit of a delay at Tesla for a little while. And so I thought, I've just not been quick enough. And although I was keeping an eye on it. But it turns out, because of theft, they'd stashed them up on top of the racks and only the manager knew that was the case. Nobody else knew where they were. And I was getting a bit shirty with them, saying, "Oi, you guys are advertising this and saying it's in stock, and nobody knows where they are." But anyway, all good in the end. So I've been charging at home out of a 10 amp spot. It's worked fine, except for a couple of weeks ago when it was really hot for 3 or 4 days in a row, and my garage got up to like 38 degrees C. It's a brick garage attached to the house, but the back corner's in the sun, and it was like 35 degrees on the temperature in there, and it gave me a warning about high temperature on the charger.
Yep.
It hasn't had done before, and it hasn't done since. Even today, it's not done that.
Did it reduce the charging rate down to 5 amps?
No, what I've noticed with it, because I do keep an eye on it because I'm interested, is the voltage just drops a little bit. So it got down to like 215 volts on the app. This is.
Okay, so that dropping is not the car doing anything. That's actually your supply dropping.
Oh, okay,
So,
right. It may be
yeah,
everybody had the air conditioners on that day or something. Because we've only got a swampy here, so we don't pull much voltage anyway on our air conditioner. So, in fact, those days it was that horrible wet night, so it didn't work anyway. So that was
indeed.
that comment. So, and my average charging for those who, I think my previous comments was this was not purchased to pay back itself. Our average daily charging is about 6 to 8 kilowatts. So not very much because we're retired. We don't travel that far.
Kilowatt hours. Yep.
Kilowatt hours. Sorry.
Yep.
Yes.
Yep. Very
So,
good.
but it is definitely handy having it at home. Although it's only 10-minute walk for me to Karrinyup, and it turns out I think I forget the chap who always ends the show. Is it Mike? Sorry, I forget his name. No, not
Pete.
Mike. Pete. Thank you.
Pete.
Pete was saying, "Oh, you never know. You might have a situation where something comes up. You should get yourself a UMC." And he was quite right, because we had a situation in the family, and my wife had to go somewhere every day, and so it would have been a bit of a nuisance having to go to Karrinyup every day to charge. So that was all good. And then last week you were talking about phantom breakings, and one of the reasons I mentioned that, and it happened to me today. So yesterday, I used the self-steering part of the enhanced autopilot.
Yep.
Sorry if I get the terms wrong. It's just not in front of me. And yesterday, leaving the freeway, coming onto Karrinyup Road, the windscreen wipers went on. And I normally have that off, so they don't. And I checked, it hadn't gone to auto. Now, today on the way back from Joondalup, it's interesting, Harold, because I immediately checked that it was supposedly off, and yet they flicked. And it was late in the afternoon. The trees were causing a shadow across the car. Anyway, today, coming back from Joondalup, coming on at Shenton Road, for those of you who know the northern suburbs, a little bit onto the freeway, the sun, it was what time? 4-ish. So the sun was a bit lower. There were some shadows, and the windscreen wipers went on again for no reason. Freeway's open there, and it was on auto this time.
So the reason for that
Yes.
is that, I mean, I get this all the time, and I get a bit frustrated because I'm one of those naughty people that have got a sexy button commander,
Yeah.
and that injects a turn off wipers. As soon as it detects the wipers have been put onto auto, it'll then put in a CAN bus signal to say turn it back off,
Yes.
which is the same as pushing the off button on the touchscreen. The issue is obviously Tesla are wise to this, and they, at random, but very regularly, within a matter of a few minutes or less, will just quietly put the wipers back onto auto. And what can happen to someone like me is at the same time I might be listening to a new song or something, and I'll either increase or decrease the volume using the left-hand scroll wheel. But at the time when the status of the wipers changes, the left-hand scroll wheel doesn't act as a volume control. It acts to either put the wipers in a different mode. And sometimes I find myself as I use a scroll wheel, it'll then flick the wipers onto full, which,
Yes.
especially when you're on a long road trip and you've got lots of locust guts all over your windscreen and a dry windscreen, the last thing you want is to wipe it. So
Yeah.
that can be quite frustrating. But that's
So that,
a normal Tesla behavior, unfortunately.
so the wipers off, they stay off most of the time, I will say, right? And I noticed that because the thing that does annoy me is every time there's a slight darkening of the background light, on come the headlights, and I hate that with a passion. Right? I know, I
Yeah.
understand why, I get it, but it just annoys me. You know, you go into a shopping centre, on come the lights. You don't need them. Well, nobody's blind. They don't make any difference. I know. I worked in safety, so I know the story. Anyway, but getting back to the phantom braking. So there we were driving along on the. It's now 3 lanes up there. We were in the middle lane. Fortunately, there was nobody too close behind, and there was nobody in front of me. And I had it on, keep the lane and traffic aware cruise. It suddenly braked without reason, and it would not go past a car in the left-hand lane. It just wouldn't go past it.
Yes, it
It
paints it.
braked 3 times as I accelerated through it. It stopped at the next car. So all these cars were causing some sort of reflection or shadow, and it wasn't happy. So that's annoying.
Yeah, that's because that's a new lane on the freeway, and I've seen this so many times. What it will do is it presumes that that lane is a on-ramp, and it's anticipating the
There you go.
behavior of those cars to your left as wanting to basically join your lane. So
Yeah.
if you're in day mode or night mode, I forget which color it paints it. It's either a dark shade or a lighter shade. I think it's a
Yeah.
darker shade in
I'll look
daytime
out for that, Harold.
to
Thanks.
indicate. Yeah, so what it'll do is it'll paint the car in front of you black because it means it's staying behind the car in front of you, but it'll also paint the cars to your left the same color, which means it's actively tracking them and effectively
Yeah, I
giving
could see
way
it
to
was
them.
tracking them. It just wouldn't let me pass them. And as you say, it's probably
Oh,
because they were going to nip in front. Yep, I got
yes,
it.
and you've got to push through that. And if you let
Yes,
go of your accelerator, it'll instantly
do the same.
um, do some fairly significant braking to basically give
Yes.
way to them.
Yes,
Uh,
so now I know why. But my comment is that this sort of stuff means that, FSD is just, I don't know if it's actually better in FSD. Maybe it is, but I'm guessing it probably isn't.
It's no,
Um,
it's totally different. So the one thing,
okay.
and John Purdom, I'm going to get to you next because you had your hand up before. Um, what we need to do is completely decouple ourselves from what
Yep.
we are experiencing with autopilot or what is our FSD packages,
Yes.
because it is nothing whatsoever to do with what the people in the US
Oh,
and
no, I get
Canada
that.
are
Yeah.
experiencing
Yeah.
on what they call supervised FSD.
Yeah.
Um,
No, no, no.
all of the mistakes that the car does, the if you go into a multi-lane intersection and you've got those curved dotted lines,
Yeah.
the car will often want to reef itself to the left as you're passing through that intersection going straight, because it
Yep.
sees the dotted lines effectively sweeping across from your right-hand side to your left-hand side, and the car will just quite wrongly assume that that is the right-hand curb
Yes.
bending to the left, and it will follow it. And it's quite freaky when it happens.
Yes.
Obviously, if you're holding the steering wheel, which you should be doing most of the time, in
Yeah,
fact,
it's
all
all
the
good.
time,
No,
it'll.
Harold, I get that. I mean, I'm following this closely because I would actually pay money for the American FSD, right? But I
Well,
wouldn't
we
pay
already have
money for
to
the version.
quietly. I've paid $10,000 for the FSD
Uh,
in my Model Y, which I'm never going to ever get to drive. So, and I
yes.
also paid $10,000 for Richard Chapman's X, for
Yes.
which it has
Um,
never.
Actually, on that, so do we have 2.5 or 3 in the X?
You have hardware 3, and John, I'm going to get to you. I'm going to get to you right after this. You have hardware 3, and it will be upgraded as long as that car still lives to hardware 4,
Oh yes.
because Elon Musk has basically conceded it that's going to happen. He said it was going to be painful, more painful as
Yes.
in cost wise than anything else, but. And it's funny because he did also say he was kind of relieved that not that many that more cars had not bought FSD who had hardware 3. Of
So
course,
this is the
the
question,
very
Harold.
next thing, sorry, just 2 seconds, Mike, to the very next thing that a lot of owners with Hardware 3 did was buy FSD to guarantee
Yeah, I was
they
going to
get the
say. So
free
what's the
upgrade.
story there?
Well, that is the story. So as long as your car has FSD that you've purchased,
Yes.
not rented like in America, but purchased,
Yeah.
then those cars will eventually be upgraded to Hardware 4.
So if I purchase it now, it will be okay then. Is that what you're
Yes,
saying?
but I don't recommend you purchase it for that reason, because you can purchase it at any time, unless you want to purchase it. Because I mean, the fact is, you may actually want to change cars between now and when FSD supervised comes to Australia, which
Sure.
again, Elon Musk indicated that Tesla was doing everything they could with all the regulators to have FSD supervised in all the other jurisdictions. He didn't mention Australia explicitly, but that's what he implied for the rest of the jurisdictions. John Purdom, you had your hand up patiently. Ask away.
Indeed. Well, it's my question is just about what we've been discussing. You've been discussing. I live in Albany, and they've built this beautiful ring road round it, enormous. Just feels like the outskirts of Los Angeles, and there's absolutely hardly anything on the road. And every time my Highland comes up to a bridge, it wants to stop. It doesn't like bridges, and it doesn't like just they have some very high screening walls on either side, and it's not dramatic braking, but it's quite unsettling braking. As I say, it's just bridges, and there'll be no vehicles anywhere within sight. And yes, but there's
So John, have you got enhanced autopilot?
no.
Oh, okay. So you've got standard autopilot.
Yep. It's
Um,
I've
do,
only
does your
ever used it on track, but I haven't used it on. I don't use the self-driving stuff very often, but yeah, it definitely in TAC does quite a large pause. Of course, I'm compensating now. Every time I see a bridge, I'm ready for it. But
Yep.
it is, yeah.
I just wonder whether it's reacting to what the map says was there before, which would have been an intersection, as opposed to the bridge.
Well,
So
not really. The ring road's going through a lot of new virgin territory. Really, it's there's absolutely, it's going through all sorts of areas. I don't. No, it's definitely the bridge, and the bridge, well, two or three overpasses. You're right. I guess that may be what it's sensing with the bridge, but the walls, the screens that are put around the sides, have no connection with any roads as such. At
no,
least I don't think so. But
That's weird,
yeah, it's worth considering that. Yeah.
I have noticed on my 3 going down the freeway, not every time, which is weird, but going on the Canning Highway Bridge, I can see the speed limit changes to 70 and the car brakes because it
Right.
thinks I'm on Canning Highway for a short period. I've had that
Yeah.
3 times out of maybe 10 or 15. It's weird. And I can see it, the speed limit, and I've got it on cruise control, so it goes,
yeah,
So
absolutely.
there's no traffic on that, John, on the top. It's not a road.
No,
It's just a
there
bridge.
wouldn't be. I mean, there are. It is potentially your internet's unstable. It's potentially going to have a lot more traffic. It's mostly trucks going to the port, of course, but they're not that frequent. And I don't know if you've ever been to Albany recently. It's a magnificent road, but there's almost nothing on it. It's I think it's you guys that are paying for it because Albany couldn't afford a road like that. So thank you very much. Well, I think
Well, you're
thank
welcome. But so John, have you been to Perth lately and seen similar things, say up the Forest Highway?
no,
Up, um, Al-
I don't believe in going to Perth, to be quite honestly. Why should I? I love it here.
Indeed. I mean, I guess when we had a high of 40 today, what did you experience down in sunny Albany?
28, and it's going to be
Very nice.
23 tomorrow. It'll be chilly tomorrow.
Cold.
Very nice. Okay. Chuck, I've got these two images up. So which one? Do you want the car first, or do you want the other one?
Oh, you can just pop them both up. I'm just trying to see if you guys can guess where it is.
Oh, geez, that's going to be hard.
Okay, I won't play that game. You just
Hang on,
you just
let's have a
one
look
up.
at this one. So we got this one, and there's, or it's like a little lighthousey thingy,
Yeah,
and
that's right.
then I'll just change over to. Oh, I think is this is on the west coast?
No,
Wrong. No, sorry, no. Okay.
that's
Anyone in
okay.
the room?
I won't make you play the guessing game. That's all right.
Okay.
Somewhere in Tasmania.
Okay, I'm gonna post my updated map now.
Oh, okay.
That will tell you where it is.
Let me get back onto the chat. We'd have to get the GeoGuessr YouTube dude to have a look.
That's right.
Oh, right. Another ferry trip. Very good,
That's
Chuck.
right. So
Wow.
now I've gone somewhere that you haven't been.
Absolutely. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Very
Yes.
good.
So I was keeping that secret until about a few days before I left. I wasn't telling anyone where I was going. Anyone
Was that
in
in
the
case
EV Tesla community.
was that in case you thought that someone from the WA might try and beat you to it?
Oh, well, I wouldn't put it past you.
I kind of resemble that remark. That's very good. Yeah, I
But
went to the very top of Flinders Island too, which is good to see.
that's it. That's those photos are from the very top road there, which is a place called Northeast River.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, so that was
So
the photo. That was this photo here.
yeah, both of those were that place.
Yeah, cool. Very
Yeah. So
good.
that is the northernmost place in Tassie you can take your car to, or drive to, I suppose you could say.
Yes. Yes. Very
Because
good.
King Island is a bit further north, but you can't. There isn't a drive-on ferry for that one.
Oh, really? Wow. So you've got to
So
use like a barge or something to get vehicles sort of as a expensive one-off sort of thing, I guess.
yeah. Well, I'll show you what I took my car on. Now I knew it was a ship. I knew what size ship it was, but I didn't realise that it was quite this small. Bear in mind, this goes into the same water as the Spirits of Tasmania.
Oh, wow. It's only the size of a few sea containers.
It
Wow.
is. It is. Yep.
Yes.
Yep. There were 7 of us on the way over and 3 of us on the way back, so it only takes a few cars.
How long
And
does it take, Chuck?
how long does it take? It took
Yeah.
about the trip takes about 8 hours. Although on the way back we were waiting outside the port for about 3 hours because they were waiting for the tide to change so they could come in.
Oh, yes. And where do you disembark from? In,
Bridport is the name of that town.
right. Very good.
On the south side, you mean, the Tassie side?
On the South Tassie side, yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So the one of the reasons I went over there was because I'm just pasting more images here. Was because on Plugshare there wasn't a single marker on Flinders Island. So I thought, well, why not make this a bit of a challenge? And yes, so the left is before and the right is after.
Oh, you've been prolific. You've found three illegal plugs. Very
Very
good.
illegal plugs. That's it. Yeah.
You got the 3-phase. Oh, fantastic.
Well, that one is. You'll notice there's no dot on the map for that one because I haven't got permission yet.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, very
Yeah.
good.
Yeah,
Okay.
but one of those green ones is a showground which has 3-phase and heaps of 15 amp.
Yeah, cool.
So I basically
Thanks.
slept there for a few nights.
Yeah,
So
right.
now there are some dots on the map, and you can basically do the length of the island and back again on half of my Model 3 rear-wheel drive battery. So
Oh, very good. So is it 50K?
yeah, only
Or is it, no, a bit more?
a bit more than that.
Yep.
There and back was about 130k,
Yeah, okay, cool.
140k. Yeah,
Yep. So it's about 70Ks
Yeah.
by road.
that's it.
Very good.
But it's more than that anyway.
look, it's an incremental improvement, or it's
It
just a
is.
documentation of what's there, which is great. That's
Yeah.
that's what it's all about.
Yeah. Well, I was explaining to them that, 7 or 8 years ago, this is what people did when they crossed the Nullarbor or when they just around Tassie. Um,
Yep.
all they had were 15 amp plugs and maybe an occasional three phase if you could find one. So,
Yeah. Yep.
so I said, look, this is how all regions with no charging start out.
Well, in fact, the fifth person to do a lap of Australia, uh, he he's uh, he describes himself as Steve of the Nullarbor.
Oh,
He
yes.
bought a
Yes.
brand new Model S and he picked it up in, I can't remember if it was Sydney or Melbourne, but basically
Yep.
drove it across the Nullarbor with nothing but 15 amp outlets.
Yes. That's right. I remember
But
I think he posted that on the Tesla Motors Club forum. He
yes,
he
yep,
posted each location, and everyone said, "Okay, so you're going to turn around now, aren't you?" No, no. They kept on going. I don't know how long that would have
crazy,
taken on 15 amp.
crazy sand gropers. And yeah, and I mean, he basically drove 24/7 in that
Yeah,
he would drive until his car was flat, fill it up on 15 amps, which
yeah,
took all day,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then drive again, for he would sort of drive for, I don't know, 2 3 hours and then rest for 12 to 18 hours and just rinse and repeat until he got all the way to Perth in
crazy.
the good old days. And
Well, that's
thankfully we just,
yeah. Well, that's it. When I was giving hints as to where I was going to people, I told them it's a lot easier than the Nullarbor in some ways, and it's a lot harder in other ways. And the
yes,
hard part is there were no markers there, so it's like taking a bit of a risk. But I had emailed the cabin park where I was staying for 2 out of the 6 days, and they said, yeah, you can plug into our 10 amp sockets. That's fine.
yeah, very good.
That
That's
was
right.
that was me
So, so
this
you
morning leaving the ship.
so you literally found those plugs on intuition where, at a port there'd be a three phase and
Yeah,
at showgrounds, the normal
yeah,
sort of sleuthing.
yeah, yeah. I wasn't confident that there would be any three phase on the island because I thought maybe the power system doesn't. I know it's a smallish island. Maybe they won't cope with it.
Yep.
Um, Speaking of the power system, there is something pretty cool there actually. I will. This will be my last picture. My last picture to paste in. So don't worry.
Yep, no worries. And
Um,
we'll get to you, Pete, in a sec.
there we go. So that picture there is a picture of my car in front of the only power station on the island. Um, you can see a few solar panels there, and you look in the background, you can see two wind turbines on those hills, very, very
Yes,
faintly.
indeed.
Yeah,
And are you saying that the entire island has got a demand of 740 kilowatts?
that was at the time I did that. Yeah,
Wow.
and the funny thing is, the customer solar was generating 754 kilowatts. So station generation is minus 14.
Oh,
The power station's job at that time was absorbing power from the grid.
so you're saying that the customer, that's individual people's solar
Like
panels.
like rooftop, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Wow.
Yeah. I don't know how they estimate it. I guess they know how much capacity is installed and they just work it out based on cloud cover or something.
Yeah, right.
Um, or they work it out based on what the station's doing. They just add or subtract that from total demand. But
Yep.
yeah, it's a system that Hydro set up. It's a what's called a hybrid renewable energy hub or something like that. I think they built one on Rottnest Island as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that looks like packaged generators,
Yeah.
perhaps.
Yeah, there's like a whole series of shipping containers, and one's a flywheel and one's a thermal resistor and things like that.
Yes,
This,
and the
this was
thermal
this
resistor is just to literally dump
just
power.
dump energy. Yeah.
Yep.
At one point, because that screenshot is just from a public app that you can download. At
Yep.
one point, I looked at it and it was dumping like 50 kilowatts into the resistor.
Wow.
And
Yep.
like that's a free EV charger they were just dumping there. Free
Yes.
50 kilowatt DC.
And there's the irony is that you could have a whole lot of EVs on the island,
Yeah.
just stocking that up at a moment's notice,
Yep.
which is really easy to do. That
That's it.
really is a function to do.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting. Fantastic. Oh, that's good, Chuck. Well, glad you
That's
went
it.
to Flint Island and yeah, that's
I just have to go to the edge of the world now to beat you for the
yes,
West.
you do. Oh, no,
So
and you've also got to cross that
Oh,
that river.
the punt.
Uh, yeah, yeah, on that little ferry, that little cable ferry.
Yeah.
You got to do
Too
that.
too many dodgy roads leading to that place, I think.
They are very dodgy.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
excellent. Thanks, Chuck. Really appreciate it.
That's it.
Um,
That's it.
Pete,
I'll put in
you've
a
got.
link to my Facebook page where I was
Oh
doing it
yes,
all. So people who want to look at it later can have a look and
yeah.
I
Please do that.
I won't do my life story on the chat now, but there it is
Very good.
for anyone who wants to check later on.
Fantastic. Thanks for that, Chuck.
Cool.
Uh,
Leave you to it.
Thank you. And Pete, you had your hand up patiently.
Sorry, Harold, was that you
No,
referring to?
no, not you,
Oh,
Pete. No,
cool.
Pete Ashton. Sorry, Pete Petrosky. Pete Ashton. Go ahead, Pete.
How you going, guys?
Very good.
Cheers for having me on. I don't have a Tesla, but I'm very interested in purchasing one. My main concern after all my research is, well, obviously the range, like everyone else, but towing. So most of the time, well, some of the time, I'm towing about 600 unbraked in a cage trailer.
Yep.
And I'm wondering how much the range would plummet towing that kind of. I've seen a lot of reviews on YouTube, but they're all towing boats of like between 2 and 3 ton, which has no real. So I'm thinking about the Model Y. Yeah, how much does the range plummet?
Okay, it sort of depends, but you mentioned a caged trailer, so that's a full height. So the cage is about what 1.2 meters tall, something like that, off the base of the box trailer.
Yeah,
Something like that. So it's a 6x4 box trailer with a cage. The cage is actually a fair bit of wind resistance. It introduces a lot of turbulence, so it's quite inefficient to pull. You'd probably, at worst, your range would go down to 60% of if you didn't, compared to if you didn't have a trailer, at worst.
Okay.
Now, that sounds like a lot and it sounds bad, but the Model Y, the new Model Y, are you looking at the standard range or the long range?
Standard.
So the standard range that has a declared range of 466 kilometers. This is the new Model Y, which I presume you'd want to look at. There are inventory ones of the previous model which have slightly less range. Now, no Model Y standard range gets 466 k's at highway speeds in Australia. It's more like the high 300s. So if you're towing a trailer, you might expect something like about the high 200s, say maybe 300 k's depending. And of course, it depends on your speed. So if you're just driving it around Perth at 60, 70, 80 kilometers an hour, or on a nice smooth freeway in a bit of traffic at 100 k's an hour, you probably only actually lose about 25% range. So it's really going to make little difference to the way you use the car.
Okay. So most of the time I'm towing at 100 k's an hour to go rural, to work in rural areas.
Yep. Whereabouts rural?
Kalgoorlie, Dongara, Esperance very rarely.
Yep.
I vaguely figured that I'd have to stop twice on the way to Kalgoorlie, which is not out of the question because that's what we already do.
Yes. So look, the good thing is I'll just bring up PlugShare, and
there's plenty of plugs on the way to Kalgoorlie apparently.
There are. So
and down south as well, but up north there doesn't seem to be so many.
Right. So if you let me just change the filters to. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to do that. I'll just get rid of the Type 2 outlets. And so what you would do is basically charge up at Merredin and then possibly a top up at Southern Cross. And then you would get to Kalgoorlie, just depending. And of course, really, I think Perth Merredin's a couple of hundred k's or 200 and maybe it's 250 k's ish. You could recover what you needed. Oh, sorry, I haven't got I didn't put this map up. Sorry about that. Here we go. So you got Perth here. You got Merredin, Southern Cross, Coolgardie, and Kalgoorlie. So Merredin's about 250 k's. You could recover all of the range you lost getting to Merredin in about 25 minutes on the Kempower fast DC charger at Merredin. Between Merredin and Southern Cross, you could actually recover that in about 12 minutes, something like that. And then you just turn up to, you could also top up at Coolgardie if you wanted, because it's actually, Coolgardie's got a great setup for trailers. So you can actually see, imagine that's a trailer, it's just drive through. So that's really simple to charge at Coolgardie. So that could be quite useful, as opposed to Kalgoorlie, which isn't trailer compatible parking charging location. It's basically a reverse in bay like that. So it's Kalgoorlie, and also and Southern Cross also has pull through trailer ability. So if I just find a trailer there, so that's really useful as well. Merredin not so much. Merredin is basically a reverse in bay. But what you can do is you can straddle across temporarily and just stay with the car while you're topping up. Now, I think you also mentioned, so basically anywhere south and southeast of Perth is fine. You've got WAV network charges, you've got Brookton, Hyden, Ravensthorpe, Esperance, so you can go that way, shortcut way. You can also go down the Albany Highway. You've got charges. You've got superchargers. You've got a supercharger at Williams, one at Kojonup and at Albany. You've also got a supercharger at Margaret River. And you've got all of these fast DC chargers basically peppered around the southwest. If you go north, you've got, that was interesting. You've got you've got the Lancelin supercharger and WAV network charger. You've got Jurien Bay, and you've got Geraldton. So at this stage, because you've got the diversion, because of the roadworks happening on Indian Ocean Drive, it's a slightly further distance from Jurien Bay to get to Geraldton, but you can certainly do that with a trailer. You just need to spend a little bit of time charging the car. I guess there is a very small compromise, which is you'll spend a little bit more time, charging your car as you would otherwise be refueling it with petrol or diesel. But it breaks up the journey and makes it a bit more relaxing, and it's sort of healthy to have those regular breaks. The great compensating factor is that even if you're charging on public DC chargers, you'll be paying less than half the energy cost equivalent in petrol or diesel. So it'll be half the fuel cost if you're charging away from home. If you're charging at home, then it's a quarter of the price. So if most of the jobs you do is sort of around town and you're mostly charging overnight at home, then that energy cost will be a quarter of the price of fuel. And your maintenance cost will dramatically decrease, because Tesla have very few items that require any regular maintenance at all, apart from the obvious of tyres, but that's just a normal thing. You don't have any normal expensive service tasks that a lube and oil change and those sort of things. And then, of course, you've got the luxurious feel of driving in a car that basically is from the future. And, you've got autopilot that comes standard with all versions of Teslas, which is very relaxing on the road as well. So, and the other thing, very compelling thing is, if presuming you are your own small business, then as long as the dutiable value of the car is less than the modified luxury car tax threshold, which every version of Tesla available in Australia pretty much is, then your business gets to pay for all of the car, and that you don't need to account for personal use, and you don't need to you need to account for the fringe benefits tax, but it's zero rated. So, and like I said, you can confirm this with your accountant, that the car becomes zero rated for fringe benefits tax purposes, although there is a reportable fringe benefits tax component that you need to report as having gotten, but it's zero rated. And all that does is it'll affect your family tax benefit Part B if you're entitled to it, and it will also affect your cap on the concessional superannuation contributions that you can make above a certain threshold. But it's, as a business type vehicle, it's a very compelling stimulus to basically have an EV instead of an ordinary ICE vehicle, which otherwise you'd have to account for personal use and either reimburse your business for that personal use or have the business pay the top marginal rate plus Medicare levy in the form of fringe benefits tax.
So what was that? Because I was just talking to my accountant the other day about this. What should I mention to them about was it the dutiable value or?
Yeah, so basically they can just look up, as long as the dutiable value, which if I just bring up, so if you see, for example, this is a Poverty Pearl Y launch edition Model Y. It shows here the price of 63,400. If you actually click into, to a drive away price of 70,000, that already is below the luxury car tax threshold. So you already know. And in fact, you can actually tell that because if you look into the details, you view the breakdown, notice how the luxury car tax, $0. As long as the luxury car tax is zero, it then complies with that government stimulus package, which means that it's zero rated for fringe benefits tax.
Okay.
Pete, just another option, if you're concerned about your range, for less than about $1,500 extra, you can probably get the long range in the Classic, in the current version, which has got some great discounts on inventory cars on the website at the moment. So, yeah, I think the launch edition of the rear-wheel drive is about 70,500 drive away. And don't forget also there's the $3,500 rebate, which is still valid up until the 10th of May, up until midnight, 10th of May. But yeah, there's a long range. I don't know, Harold, if you can pull up the Classic, the inventory, and if you just tick long range and order it from low to high, you'll notice there's a blue one there for about 71,500. And that will give you, if you charge that car to 100%, so it depends on how often you're making these rural trips. But if you're only doing them, well, how often would you do them?
I probably maybe twice a month.
Okay, so if you're doing them twice a month, that's perfectly fine. So twice a month, you could charge that battery to 100%. So the difference between the rear-wheel drive and the long range has got a NCA, a nickel cobalt aluminium battery. The rear-wheel drive has got an LFP, a lithium phosphate ion battery. So the rear-wheel drive, you can charge to 100% all day, every day. In fact, Tesla recommends charging it to 100% at least once a week to recalibrate your range. But with the NCA battery on the long range, you're only recommended to charge to 80% on a daily basis. But those trips twice a month, you could charge to 100% or 95 or 98%. And as long as you start driving within, 5, 10, 15 minutes of when you finish charging, and you can schedule your charging. So if you know that you'll be leaving at, let's say, 8 o'clock tomorrow morning, you can schedule your charging to finish, at 7:45 or something like that. With that, with 100% on that long range, Harold, are you able to just quickly look up what the range difference is? It'd probably be
Yeah, it's
60, 70 kilometres.
Yeah, so roughly you're looking at about nearly 20 kilowatt hours. So yeah, if we just look at the specs on the, oh, actually, sorry, if I just,
But overall, are they less efficient because they need more batteries to drive the two different engines,
no,
motors?
no,
No?
no, not really. So, okay, if you look at the headline, oh, sorry, it's not going to show. Oh, yeah, here we go for details. So this is the rear-wheel drive classic Model Y. So this is the current model. They show 455 kilometers. If we go back to the long range, so it was from 455 to, I think it was 533. So that's about 80 kilometers of difference, which is about right. So you do get that extra bit of range, which is useful for the longer trips. While you're around town, Tesla recommends you just charge the battery to 80%. So on a daily basis, just around town, it's much the same to have the standard range and the long range, because the standard range can be charged to 100% basically daily, and then the long range can also be actually charged daily to 100%, provided that you start consuming that battery shortly after you've got it to 100%. So, and as Pete mentioned, basically you do it sort of depends on what you want to do with the car. If it's really mainly for business purposes, as a workhorse, then you may want to go down the route of. Also, the other thing too is these cars are available effectively immediately, and as Pete said, they are also entitled to. Sorry, not these ones. These ones are entitled. You can get them almost immediately, and that means that you will be able to put in an application to get the $3,500 rebate from the government. Oh, actually, let's better just check. Oh no, long range all-wheel drive. Just check the details.
I think it qualifies, Harold.
That
I'd double check, but yeah, it looks like it would qualify.
We'll just check the breakdown. Vehicle subtotal. So this is the one that counts as subtotal, which includes GST, is below the $70,000 threshold. So that does qualify. So you can get another $3,500 off a car that's almost ready for immediate delivery in the long range, and also the standard range for that matter, of course. The new released a new shape, slightly different shape Model Y, and the only difference in real shape is basically the front and the rear. The side, the doors are exactly the same. The interior is slightly more updated. You've got an additional touch screen in the back, which you can see just here. So it's nicer if you've got kids or whatever, they're in the car. But that's not everything. But this launch edition is obviously significantly dearer. So as opposed to 65,000 drive away, the launch edition for a long range is 81,000, and you will not be able to get the $3,500 WA government rebate, because the final date to apply for that rebate is midnight, the 10th of May. And Tesla Australia have already confirmed that none of the new Model Ys will be ready to be licensed or delivered before that date or by that date. So
it has to be when they're delivered by, within.
Technically, it has to be when you've got the rego details, such as the VIN and the registration details, is when you can actually apply for it, because you need that as a prerequisite, which technically means you may not have actually gotten physical delivery of it yet, provided you've already got those details. But Tesla have absolutely thrown a blanket over that and said there is absolutely zero chance that any of the new shaped revised Model Ys will be ready to be applied for under that grant by the 10th of May.
This is a $3,500 rebate.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. Whereas if you go into Tesla, and I obviously recommend that you go to the showroom and have a look at the cars physically and drive them, obviously, and Also look at Tesla's website so you can, and there's quite a few videos online that show the interior of the Model Y. A great clue as to what the refreshed interior looks like is just hop into the Model 3 that's next to the Model Y at the showroom, because it has very similar styling. In fact, I dare say it's almost identical, basically, as far as the little highlight lights, the way the center console is slightly different. And just see whether, look, I can tell you now, as a business, if you're doing this as a business vehicle that's intended to earn you money, then anyone will tell you that, well, you just get the most basic version of the car that does the job, and therefore the current model does that job. Also on the lines of, if you have a family or whatever, you may actually, and a lot of people do this, they jump into their first Tesla and think that was a great achievement, but very quickly work out that this is the only way to go, and they very quickly get other family members to have Teslas as well. So it's not necessarily that this will be your last purchase of a Tesla. In fact, it actually is just the first purchase. So,
Well, I guess the main concern for me is that I am a little bit of an adventurer. So when I do have time off, like last year, I did a lap around Australia, and I'm worried that I wouldn't be able to do that in a Tesla.
yeah, okay. Hang on,
So if you're looking at,
before you say anything, I'll just bring up a little map for you, which you should be familiar with since you've gone around Australia. And that map is this one here.
And when I
So,
did that trip, I went up the center of Australia too.
oh
And I've
yeah,
had
okay.
it on plug share, and there's not a hell of a lot of.
Yep. Okay. So just for reference, this is in a Model Y that's been around Australia. This is the sixth lap this Model Y has been around Australia, and you can see it's been done in 10 days. So first day Karratha, then Derby, Timber Creek, Three Ways, Charters Towers, Brisbane, Holbrook, Adelaide, Kimber, Norseman. Now,
Mm.
you did mention a figure eight. So, sorry, well, you mentioned going down the guts. So this very same car has been down the guts twice. I'll just see if I can bring that one up. And
Is that a long range or a rear wheel?
it's a long range. It's a performance, but it's basically a long range. So
but the round
um,
Australia trips were done in a rear-wheel drive, yeah, like 2 days after it was first delivered in WA.
yeah,
So
this is the route that the car's done twice. So from Perth up to Darwin, down to Port Augusta, Melbourne, Canberra, Sydney, Brisbane, Townsville, Three Ways, Timber Creek, Port Augusta, back to Perth. Now you'll see the word Jayco because once it did it by itself, and the other time it did the figure eight towing a caravan, and that was a long range Model Y.
Wow. Okay.
So
now you mentioned that you're adventurous. So another consideration with the long range is that's a dual motor car. So that's a four-wheel drive, which may come in handy, if you're towing or if you're doing, camping or, off-road stuff or what have you. I mean, the Model Y is not really an off-road vehicle, but it is a crossover. And the fact that you've got two motors and you've got instant torque, instant torque makes makes the car a lot more off-road capable than an equivalent car, purely because your traction control is much more effective. So with an internal combustion engine, you obviously have to have the explosion, the cylinders, and by the time all that takes place, the traction control can only adjust a few times a second. Whereas with a electric motor, it's more like a few times a millisecond. So
Okay. Cool. And are the long range a little bit better with towing? Would it not affect the range quite so much because of the two engines?
no, so the effect on range is basically
Same.
the same. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Hmm.
So you do lose range. If it was a more streamlined trailer, that would make a difference. the cage in particular, whether it's full or empty, just the nature of the cage introduces a lot of turbulence, and that turbulence causes drag. So, I mean, what you could do, well, if you wanted to, is you could see if there's any cars on Turo that have a tow bar. I'm sure some might, and you could just do a test by yourself. You could run your own test for the trailer that you intend to tow with.
Really? You can hire a Tesla to tow.
Well, you could
I've
hire a
got
test that's got a
I've
tow.
got I've got two Teslas on Turo that both have tow bars. I haven't let people tow with those, but I'll put my number in the chat, and feel free to give me a call afterwards, and I'll ring Turo and see if that's something that can be done. I wouldn't do it generally for people from the general public, but yeah, like I said, I'll put my number in there and give me a call and see if that's something that can or can't be done. But yeah, what Harold's getting at is it's really your it's not necessarily the weight of your trailer, it's more the aerodynamics that will impact your range. So, one thing that you could do is, I'm not sure how much load you've got as far as volume is concerned, whether you could cut down a portion of that cage, or whether you could either amend that trailer to make it more aerodynamic, or just buy a different trailer. But those could be other considerations as well. Or you could do both. You could do that plus get a classic long range, which with that $3,500, it will actually be closer to about $2,000 cheaper, and you can get it straight away.
Yeah, cool.
A few options anyway.
Yeah,
And
no,
also,
definitely could do that. And I've heard a lot about the drag factor. What was I going to say? Up the guts of Perth, sorry, WA, where I went last time, there doesn't seem to be any fast chargers at all.
you mean Great Northern Highway?
Yeah,
that's what he meant.
Yes.
Yes. No, you're right. So, look, that is we mentioned earlier, the WAV network has been declared as being complete. Well, there's obviously a glaring omission, which is the Great Northern Highway. And that is a route that is notably absent of fast DC charges beyond Dalbolognue. So that is something that us as a club are pushing all political parties in this election time to commit to completing that portion of a electrified route. And that's hopefully something that might be done over the next couple of years. But at the moment, you've got to take it as that is not available. Now, I don't know whether you would still keep your current vehicle that you've got if you bought the Tesla. I mean, one option is if you kept an ICE car, you could reserve it for some of those rarer trips where there really just isn't anything. But then on every other day, you take full advantage of having the Tesla. That just depends on, what if you've got space and the budget to keep a vehicle for those sort of ones.
Technically not. No. I have a Commodore at the moment, which has been awesome to me. It just sings that thing, and I've got about 400,000 Ks on it, 380,000.
Yep.
But it's starting to get to the point where hence looking into Teslas.
Yep.
And it's not going to survive much longer, that Commodore, unfortunately.
No. Look, you've done pretty well to get that sort of duration out of it, but no doubt you've spent a lot on servicing.
Yes and no. It's actually been funnily very reasonably. I haven't spent a hell of a lot at all actually on servicing, surprisingly. But yeah, it's been well kept and a lot of long Ks, which is why it's lasted so long.
Yep.
My first Tesla, I did 100,000 kilometers and spent $380 on that car. And now the average Australian does about 15,000 kilometres a year. So that's the equivalent of about 5 years worth of driving.
Yeah.
And that cost me $380 in all the electricity for those 100,000 kilometres and all the maintenance and servicing combined.
$300 in electricity to run
380, yeah. So
to charge the Tesla for
correct.
100,000 Ks.
Pete has solar
Correct.
power though. So one little asterisk there is Pete does have solar power.
Okay, that's
And we've got a friendly local shopping centre with that provides free charging as well. And there's a lot of, actually, I wouldn't say free charging, I'd say complimentary charging. So there are a lot of shopping centres around Perth. There's some Bunnings now that offer complimentary charging. So between the complimentary charging between our synergy tariff, so once you have an EV, you can go on a lower synergy tariff, and that applies for the rest for the whole of your home, not just for charging your EV. Combine that with a solar system, $380 odd to do 100,000 kilometres for all the electricity and all the servicing and all the maintenance combined. So I would say you'd probably spend that much on your Commodore in a month.
Oh yes, but I don't have
Just on
solar,
petrol.
so it would probably cost me, about a quarter of petrol.
If it-
cost, so.
Yeah, exactly. Now you mentioned
correct.
you mentioned being adventurous. This is something that don't necessarily recommend you do every day, but this is something that the cars can do. And this was more by necessity. If this will
And
work.
cheers, Pete, for mentioning the off-road thing is a concern, because I was worried about whether Teslas can deal. Yeah, perfect. Awesome. Deal with water like that. That's good.
Yeah.
Well, it's got an inherent advantage in that it's not sucking in any air, so it's not going to suck in any water. So you've got that advantage. I mean, there are people that have loaded a Model S with lead and have used it as a submarine. So I have done exactly what Harold's doing there, but I have actually had the water above the top of the roof. They had to use scuba diving equipment because the car did flood. The car kept on going and it dried out and it still works. So not that I'm recommending that you do that, but it is a possibility in the most extreme case. What I'll also mention is you might want to look up when we're done our TOCWA website, so tocwa.org.au. TOCWA, Tesla Owners Club of WA. And so if you just Google TOCWA, what to expect when you're expecting your Tesla, there's an article that may help. And before I forget, I'll put my number in case you wanted to talk about Turo as well.
Yeah, great. Cheers. Thanks. Awesome.
Alrighty. But look, I'd definitely seriously consider it. And it might not be perfect for, that 1 in 100 jobs or something, but I think the value you'll get out of the car for every other purpose is going to greatly offset that.
That's what it seems like. Yeah, that's why I'm very excited about it.
Absolutely. One other thing before I forget, if you know someone who already has a Tesla and they will be a good, source to get some support from. I mean, we're always here. You can use their referral code, and for the classic car, you'll get about $350 off. They will also get about $150 in credits towards the store. But you can't use it on the new shape Model Y. So, you can, but you won't get anything, and neither will the referrer. If you don't know anyone,
one guy, but apparently his points expired because they last 2 years or something.
yeah, no, that's fine. You can still use his referral code, and he'll get more points, and you'll get $350 off the classic version of the Model Y.
Okay.
If you don't want to use his, or if you can't get hold of him or what have you, you can jump on our website, and we've got a random referral code generator, And for anyone who's listening, if you're a financial member, which only costs $20 a year, once you become a financial member, you can put your code in there, and you may, other people may get to use it. We've had members that have had their code used 2 or 3 times in a year, so that more than more than pays off for your $20 membership. So that applies to everyone except TOCWA committee members. So TOCWA committee members can't put their codes in there.
Right. Thanks, guys.
No worries.
Hi,
Alrighty.
Harold. Yeah, hi, Harold. It's Brian Williamson. I think I sent you a note the other day just with regard to a couple of questions for the Tesla. And the questions I've got asked, bi-directional charging, what's happening there with, is Tesla going to head that way or what? And when?
Yes, they already are. So the yet to be released in Australia Cybertruck supports bidirectional charging or power flow. And Tesla have indicated that future models will also support bidirectional charging. Technically, at the moment, there have been experiments made by people producing charging equipment that have demonstrated, I think it was a Model Y, a standard Model Y, actually being successfully drained from power from basically using a DC charger to draw power rather than to provide power. But that's very much off-label and could be stopped by Tesla at any moment if they wanted to. But that's the story. So none of the current cars support bidirectional charging officially, or even they may or may not work unofficially using external equipment. But future models, including the Cybertruck already has got vehicle to load and vehicle to home actually, which has been demonstrated with their power share. I forget what they call it, but it basically integrates with a home connected to a power wall.
It is power share, Harold.
Power share. Yep.
So what you're saying there basically is the current models aren't and unlikely to be, and then basically have to wait for the future models to be able to do bi-directional charging?
Yes, I guess my rhetorical question, Brian, is why are you keen on bi-directional charging? What's the killer app in that sense?
Oh, look, we moved to Perth, New South Wales a couple of years ago, and we built a new house. And I'm an electrician, and I've electrified the whole house and everything. I've got solar on there. I'm about to upgrade this year to additional solar and plus put in a battery. And the last component was bi-directional charging. It's I know it's probably it's one of these things that it's just what I want to do.
Yep, that's cool. So my reply to that is you should definitely install fixed stationary battery storage because kilowatt hour it is vastly cheaper in stationary storage than it is on a rather expensive battery on wheels. And it's much to be meaningful as a source of energy, stored energy, you may want to dip as greatly as like half into your battery for your vehicle, depending on conditions. And the thing is, no one can predict what your required use of the car might be that next morning. And it might be that you really wanted to do an unexpectedly long trip, and you're obviously doing battery storage with solar in order to save money. So that means that you could go on the daytime saver plan, which is 8 cents per kilowatt hour between 8 or 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. But then it's very expensive between 3 p.m. and 9 p.m. And then between 9 p.m. and 9 a.m. it's sort of the standard tariff roughly. Now, you wouldn't be very pleased if your house had consumed, let's say, half of your car's battery charge overnight, and then you suddenly have to do a trip to Albany Now, that's not a problem because you can just jump to a supercharger or fast DC charger, recover that 50% of the battery in, well, not necessarily 50% of it, but a substantial amount in, say, 10 minutes. But you'd be paying between, high 50s and 70 cents per kilowatt hour. And that
Yeah.
kind of unravels some of that saving you did by the house using that energy overnight. So I think you'll find you're far better off putting more investment in stationary storage, which is available all the time and will never interfere with the use of your car. Now you may moderate the charging of your car to pick a better time or a different day because you may have had a cloudy day and you just don't want to decant energy from your stationary storage to your car that day. So you might sort of like delay recharging your car until the next day, but at least you'll know that your house is generally unimpinged. It's a much better system, and it also means you've always got the energy available. It doesn't rely on your car being there. So again, maybe your partner might borrow the car or something, and you go, "Oh, gee, I really, it's 7:30 at night and it's hot, and my stationary storage battery hasn't got much in it. I really need the car to boost the house, and the car might not be there." So I think, bearing in mind, stationary storage at the moment is not yet economically viable. No one ought to do it today for strictly economic reasons. There are a whole
Yeah,
lot of
no,
others that are very,
yeah, Harold, you are right, and I'm doing this in a stage process this year, and
yep,
basically I am going to go up to 13.2 kilowatts of solar, and then I'm probably going to put in a 13.5 kilowatt hour, battery into the house. That's my first step.
to be
The
honest, Brian,
bidirectional charging.
light on. That's a little bit light on, in my humble opinion, unless you're using something like evaporative air conditioning, or you're using room split air conditioners, and you sort of are fairly frugal with that. Um, to really do a house well, you really need in excess of 20 kilowatt hours to do the best that you can. So you need substantial battery storage, unfortunately.
Oh, look, yeah, look. This is all part of a build process. You don't. One thing about that, the batteries you can add on to them as you go anyway. So it's not
Yep.
the end of the world if you don't get it right the first time. But my plan is that's what my plan is to do this year. Because I've got a caravan. I've got the second car. I've got a Ford Ranger to tow the caravan. So it's always going to be there as the backup because unfortunately I can't see in the short term anyway an electric vehicle towing a what do you call it, 2.5 ton caravan, for any great distance. So I've got the other car for that. The second
Yep.
car we're talking about, the EV, is more a second car that my wife drives and so on. My other question to you is, I suppose this is just a preference thing. Um, with Tesla, I know they have that central screen there. Is there any way that you can actually buy it with that the driver's screen there, or even a heads-up display to go with it?
There are a lot of accessories. One of the cheapest accessories would be to buy the Sexy Buttons Commander. Then you can use the Sexy Buttons app just on your phone, and you could then mount your phone on a phone mount, magnetic phone mount or whatever, sort of behind the steering wheel. I'll just try and bring up the let's see if we can do it. Yeah, so I'll just spotlight myself. This is the dash. Now, obviously, the car's not traveling; it's not doing anything. But this would normally be the speed, the speedometer, and then you would have indicators would show as left or right, um, as like green flashes, and it shows various other things. So, because the most thing you want to use a dash for is for speed, and it can also show the power being used or regenerated. So you can get other third part third party accessories that do precisely that. They act as secondary screens. I can reassure you that it really, I mean, if you may recall, the old Minis had the speedo was in the center of the dash, so that it didn't matter whether it was left-hand drive or right-hand drive, the speedo was in the same position, and people got used to having that sort of off-axis. The actual speed on a Model 3 or a Y is just off-axis a little bit to the left of your vision, but you get very accustomed to just glancing there momentarily to see what your speed is, because after all, when you're looking at the speed of a conventional speed on the conventional dash, you have to take your eyes off the road momentarily to look directly, mostly downwards. In a Tesla, it's just slightly downwards and to the left. But it's something you get accustomed to very, very quickly. But in any case, there are a great number of increasingly sophisticated accessories that act as secondary dashboards and screens and similar things. And they're all
Brian,
reasonably priced.
Brian, my boy is 80 years old, and he took my Tesla for a drive, and he drove around for about 10 or 15 minutes. And then I asked him once we were at home whether it bothered him that the speedometer was off to the left. And he asked me what I meant. And I said, well, you know, your speedometer was on the big screen, was it in front of you? And he said, no, what are you talking about? And I said, well, you did notice that it wasn't a handle. It wasn't an indicator. It wasn't a analog one. It was a digital one. He said, yeah. No, I noticed the digits changing around. So he had, without even thinking about it, completely unconsciously started looking at the speedometer on the left. And I actually had to drag him out to the car. I said, you realise it has no binnacle in front of you? And he didn't believe me. So I had to drag him out to the car. And then he went, wow, yeah, I didn't even realise. Had you not told me, I wouldn't have even known. So some people, I remember when the Model 3 first came out, there was a huge amount of conjecture and hurrah about not having a binnacle in front. But as soon as the cars started being delivered, that completely died down, and it's just a complete non-issue now. But if you find that it still is an issue for you down the track, the Model Y was the best-selling car of any kind, of any fuel type in the world in 2024, as well as in 2023. So it's the world's most popular car. Hence, there's no other car that's got more accessories available for it. And I would hazard a guess there's probably about 20 different binnacles that you can buy. There's probably about 5 or 10 different heads-up displays that you can get now. So there's no shortage of accessories that you can fit onto the car.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for all of that. But I was just wondering whether Tesla, with all of those, as you just mentioned there, Pete, all those inquiries about it, had actually ever addressed it and said, yeah, look, we might do it later on, or there's an option that we can put in to do it or something like that.
And another thing, though, may give you a bit more confidence. So I've rented out my Teslas to over 200 renters now, and I have not had a single guest come back and say, the screen off to the left was an issue, or no one's ever brought it up. Literally, I've had people bring up other things, but never that.
Okay, look, thank you very much for all of that.
Pleasure.
No worries. Stefan, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, thanks. I have now got a Model Y with 19-inch wheels. I used to have a performance Model 3, which I got a spare wheel for because I used to go to Beverly quite often. It's now standing around, and I'm wondering what to do with it. Got any suggestions? It's a brand new spare tire for a Model 2019 Model 3.
Put it up for sale on our Facebook page.
So again?
Feel free to post it on our Tokwa Facebook page and see if anyone's interested. Do you know how much you're looking for it?
Yeah, it cost $500. It's never been used. I'm quite
Yeah.
happy to give it.
You probably won't get 500
No,
for it.
no, but I'm quite happy with 350 or
Yep.
something like that.
On our Facebook page, Stefan, and you'll probably get someone snapping it up pretty quickly.
Well, the problem there is I'm not on Facebook. And I don't know. It's just one.
Okay, send me an email with your contact details. I think I've got your phone number actually, and one of us will put it up on Facebook. If you can get some photos of it, just take some photos, send it to me, and we'll sort something out.
It's just a brand new tire with the right rim, obviously.
Yep.
Okay.
And if there's anyone who's watching this program, because there are a few that do, there's several hundred that do watch. Send me a message to secretary@tokwa.org.au or phone 62623131 and we'll put you in touch with Stefan to buy this thing. Stefan, get me a couple of photos. I mean, I know it's brand new, so it'll be it's the same standard 19-inch. That's the alloy wheels.
Yeah,
from
it's got the right hole pattern, and it just fits on a
perfect.
Model 3 Performance, which had 19-inch wheels, I think.
Yep, send me some photos, and we'll either list it on Facebook or something. We'll work something out.
Okay, Humphrey. All right, I'll give you a call.
Cool, no worries.
Thank you very much.
No worries, Craig. You got your hand up.
Hi. Look, I've been doing a lot of research on tow bars with the Model Y, and I want to put 4 bike racks or 5, if I can, on the back. And anti-rattle hitches seems to be an issue when you're trying to do some of those vertical racks. You can't fit the anti-rattle bracket with the recessed Tesla installed tow bar. My preference is, to try and go for genuine, to, not have any other issues. But is there any strong thoughts either way on going aftermarket or with the genuine? And
my sole preference, I've got a Model Y that's got the Tesla built-in tow hitch. Regardless of anything else that anyone else might offer, that's that the non-Tesla fitted tow hitch has, the most compelling reason is when you're doing proper towing, the car can enable tow mode, which is a great feature. So it means you've got full integration. It'll suppress your reversing warning tones that you'll get. It's just fully integrated. My only suggestion, I understand what you mean about the anti-rattle, so I presume that's something that grips onto the actual let's call it the Heyman Reese hitch. Is that what it does?
Yeah, so it sits, overlaps the bracket that's fitted to the car, the square hitch, and whatever you're putting into the square hitch to stop swaying. When you've got heavier bikes and stuff like that on there.
Yeah, because a little bit of play. My only suggestion is I don't know if these things exist. I haven't really done any research into it, but off the top of my head, I'd be doing something like inserting a wedge.
Yeah, there are shims that exist. I've seen those online, and people have mentioned them. So that's certainly an option.
Yep.
The other question on that is, I understand that the down rating on the tow ball is 160 kilos when towing, but someone mentioned the other day that it's only 72 kilos if you've got a bike rack on there, which was new to me, and I don't know if there's anyone else have any comments on that.
I've not seen any reference to that whatsoever. I'm only a humble electronics engineer, so for any mechanical engineers, please forgive me, but I don't see a rational reason why there would be a difference. I do understand that there's a bending moment. No, I just don't. I don't see that for something like a bike rack that would be derated in that sense. I really don't. I
Okay.
don't see that.
All right. So, okay, perfect. That's helpful. Thank you.
And in fact, Tesla do sell bike racks. Oh,
Yeah, they
well,
do. They sell the old school ones that you kind of sit as a fork and you put the bikes on. But I'm looking for something else. But yeah.
yeah. No, look, I would, from my point of view, and this is not necessarily strict advice or anything, but I would say that it's absolutely plausible that you can use the whole 160 kilos, albeit the presumption of that is that's the tongue weight.
Yes.
A bike rack, there's a difference on a bike rack that weighs 160 kilos compared to a trailer that's applying a tongue weight of 160 kilos, because the 160 kilos of a bike rack is not applied to the tongue, it's applied probably half a meter backwards of the tongue.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean.
Yeah, I
So
do know what you mean.
there is that bending moment.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. I would definitely agree with that. I'm also an engineer, and I think the bending moment is the difference. So I
Yes.
can see the reasoning for that. Yeah.
But even Craig, 72 kilos. I mean, 72 kilos is a lot of. I mean, what's a bike weigh? 10 kilo for one bike?
Well, it's so for most of the decent sized bike racks, they're 25 to 30 kilos for the rack alone. If you're looking at a 4 or 5 bike rack, and I weighed the standard mountain bikes at around 12 kilos, but call them 15. 4 bikes, you're looking at 60 kilos plus the rack, 30 kilos. So you're looking at least 90. The big racks are rated to 100 kilos maximum, and then 30 kilos. So 130 is the maximum that most would, the racks would accommodate under their restrictions. So, yeah.
Look, to be honest, I think you'll be perfectly okay. I've slung off vastly more than that, albeit on a Model X tow hitch. And Richard Chapman should close his ears, but I've slung I think it was 160 kilo tritium fast DC charger hanging a meter off the hitch. And this is a hitch that uses a quarter turn to dislodge and come out of the bottom of the car.
Right.
Really scary.
And no,
Pretty sure I may have gone a few kilos above the weight rating when I was towing an entire wall to the tip in a trailer. So yeah, don't tell Robin. Yeah.
And I can tell you that I was driving behind Harold when he had that tritium back, and the hill was going back and forth like that. Even speed bumps.
We kind of don't know too bad because I didn't come across her. So
yeah,
well, thank you, appreciate that.
So yeah, that's certainly not advice to misuse your tow hitch, but look, I'm very confident you'll be fine. You really will be, for all intents and purposes. And in fact, I am going to dig out. I do recall it was on Lake Grace, and I know it's on PlugShare Photos, and I will just show you very quickly that actual crazy setup, and it's just loading up now. But you can certainly take these things. They have maximum safe working loads, and then they have overload situations. And in fact, it's not going to show up. But anyway, so yeah, you can definitely take these things well above their design limits because they have to have obviously overload designs. But again, that's not strict, professional advice.
Sure. Thank you.
No worries. All right. Is there anyone else that's got any other questions? Oh, sorry, I did find it. Here it is. There it is there. That's a full weight tritium charger hanging off the tow hitch. of what is now Richard Chapman's Model X. Alrighty. Anyone else got? Oh yes, sorry, Mike, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, hi again. Let me just get rid of that. Going back to the early question, this is about maps on the 3, or I guess any other Tesla. So I don't have the $10 a month, what do you call it, connection thing, because we essentially don't use anything.
Connectivity, yep.
You know, the music and all that stuff, you know, not a big deal for us. But when you commented before, Harold, about, you know, the new lane up at the Joondalup end of the freeway, I guess is it the mapping system that is not seeing that new lane? I'm trying to figure out the interaction between maps and how.
Yeah, so there's two aspects to what you see. So the map is provided by Google, but navigation is provided by TomTom. So the TomTom navigational mapping is downloaded to the car periodically. It used to be annually. I think now it's a little bit more often than once a year. However, they are offline maps. So the car uses its internal mapping to do the actual route planning. Sorry, the route determination. The planning is in conjunction with traffic data, which, even though you don't have premium connectivity and isn't shown as an option on your touchscreen, it's still used in consideration for route planning. But the actual route determination, what is trafficable, is done by the offline map, which is downloaded periodically. So unfortunately, when you have new bits of road, even though Google will show it correctly, you'll often see the blue line. Actually, I get this going down the top part of the freeway. It'll, as you're doing it, it'll tell you to do all these weird. Oh no, sorry, no, it was near Gympie. Sorry, it was near Gympie. But anyway, it's a new piece of road. And the navigation thing, even though Google shows it correctly and the car on the correct highway, the navigation keeps yelling at you going, turn left on this crossroad and turn right here and whatever, because it doesn't know. So that's why the navigational planning is offline.
Can I just make sure I fully understand? So we don't have the connectivity, but it's still Google Maps.
Connectivity. So that is not a factor in that question. So let's decide connectivity.
I just want to know what map it was. So it's still Google Maps. The interesting thing.
Maps as the display.
Yes, that's what I mean.
As the route planner, which lays over that display, it lays over the Google map its own representation of which way to go.
Yes. So the other thing is we do see traffic if we have traffic aware. There's a setting on the navigation. I think it is traffic aware navigation or something like that. And so we can see, like, you know, when the freeway is slow or when there's a queue at the traffic light. So we can see that.
You see that as the little line that's on the bottom that shows your progress of the route, and it'll color it in different colors according to whether
red or whatever.
Yes, but it won't show, when you look at the map, it won't show you all that sea of red or whatever it is during peak hour on the map itself.
Yeah, it does.
Oh, really? Oh, maybe that's come. Okay, so maybe Tesla's relented, because that was a feature that they removed if you didn't pay for premium connectivity after
it's entirely possible that is a case from the update at Christmas, because prior to that, I put a shortcut on my iPhone to make it patch to the web so that it would see that traffic data. So that's that. So now I know it's TomTom, because when I have that traffic aware on, it doesn't matter what, you know, where you can say reroute it if you can save 10 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever. It doesn't matter what I have set that setting on. If you have it on, it sends you through all sorts of weird back streets and stuff.
Yes.
Because there's a traffic light with a little bit of red in front of it. Is that, and that's from TomTom, is it?
Well, no. TomTom does the route.
Yes.
It blends it with the traffic data for things like speed and whatever. But sometimes, if you're especially going in certain rural areas, it can send you on a weird route because it wrongly thinks the speed limit on a certain leg is, say, the default 50 k's an hour rather than 100 or 110 k's. and it'll actually send you on an otherwise back road because it thinks or it's judged that that's a quicker transit time, even though it's misled. So unfortunately, the route planning isn't perfect.
No,
So
it's far from it, in fact. Because
yes,
because I'm in Carrick, I sometimes go to Morley, and if I have that traffic business on, it sends me through all these back streets where I'm in 50 kilometres an hour and turning left and right, just wiggling away when it should have gone straight along Morley Drive and right down Wellington Street. And if I
yes.
turn that off, that's exactly what it does. So I just wondered, it's the TomTom
Yep.
maps that's a bit weird.
Yeah, oh, it's interaction with the map and the actual route planning. That's
Yes,
yeah,
there's a calculation there. Yeah.
indeed.
All right,
Having
good.
said,
Thank you.
I did go to Tokwa had a movie night at the Galaxy Drive-In, and my car told me to go down Wanneroo Road, and I went, no, that's ridiculous. I'll go down the freeway like I always do because that's free flowing at 10 o'clock at night. And sure enough, there were roadworks, and the freeway was cut at Karrinyup
Yes.
Road or wherever it was, and I kind
Yeah.
of swore to myself that I would always listen to the car.
Yes.
And I try my best to usually listen to the car, but
I think it's trying to do the right thing. I think the problem is it makes no difference whether you're doing 1 minute avoidance or 30 or 20 is the maximum or 30. It makes no difference. As soon as you got 1 minute in there, it'll send you a random country. If it thinks there's a queue at a single traffic light along Morley Drive, for example.
that's right, exactly.
Thanks.
Alrighty. Anyone else got any other questions or comments before we go to some share price based discussion, which
Oh,
is kind
Harold.
of traditional?
So
Mike.
maybe I do. Is this the right place? And say no if it isn't. I was thinking about buying some Tesla shares, and as far as I can tell, because they're American, you've got ETFs or one other format to do it, but you guys are right into it. So if it's not appropriate here, fine.
No. So what I'm going to do is this absolutely appropriate. But what I'll do first, and we haven't done this for a long time, and it's always entertaining to do so, I'll just play this little disclaimer.
All views expressed are solely personal opinions, which you should not treat as personal advice, general advice, legal advice, tax advice, insurance advice, financial or investment advice, or advice of any other type.
You should not treat any contents as a solicitation, inducement, or recommendation to undertake any investment, to buy or sell any security, investment product or service, to follow any investment or trading strategy, or to enter, not enter, break or avoid any contract or insurance policy. Any comments are solely the expression of personal opinions and should be treated as such. All contents are for entertainment, educational and informational purposes only. All information provided and all comments made are general in nature and should not be acted upon without seeking professional guidance tailored to your individual circumstances. Past performance is not indicative of future results. Investing involves risks, including potential loss of principal and or other assets. Consult with qualified and licensed professionals before making any financial or investment decisions. Now to Topwell is committed with no indications for organizations allowed on the internet,
Yes, it's an oldie but a goodie, and thank you to Pete Petrosky for writing that disclaimer. And had I not sped it up, it would still be going for another 3 or 4 minutes. But okay, so speaking personally, I have not bought Tesla shares directly. I've bought them through one of the bank-based trading platforms, such as like ComSec or NAB, whatever that's called.
Westpac Broking.
Yep. Now, I know the NAB one definitely, like I don't get voting rights because it's held in a pooled registry on behalf of the NAB. So it's still backed by them. It's still safe. It's backed by the wealth of the NAB. But I don't get voting rights. But I do kind of own those shares. If I buy a share, I have that share. So it's not an ETF or anything like that. My son, he's a generation younger than me, and he's just bought some of his shares on stake. Now, I can't vouch for the robustness of that platform or the reliability of it or whatever, but that's what he's done. And he can buy, I think he can buy fractional shares actually on stake. And the brokerage is very low. And then others, a friend of mine's got Tesla shares. I forget the brokerage, but it's actually an American brokerage, which he actually has the voting rights for, and he's a registered shareholder, and he actually gets all of the voting share papers or the voting papers and all that sort of stuff. So you can absolutely directly buy Tesla shares. You don't need to use something like an ETF or some other derivative to do that. And yeah, obviously do your own research as far as whether you want to use, one of the bank brokerages, one of the premium brokers. Pete Petrosky, I'm sure there are premium brokers in Perth that will buy Tesla shares directly.
Absolutely, there's a whole bunch of them.
Yes, I've bought mine through JB Ware.
Oh yes, yeah, there you go. So that's a classic share broker, and you can do it that way, or you can do an online brokerage. Like I said, mine personally are NAB, and the only wrinkle in that is my frustration was at the last shareholder meeting where I wanted to vote in favour of the Elon Musk's CEO compensation plan. I was unable to do that. Although I believe ComSec, I think they actually relented and they allow people to do that now, I think.
Well, Harold, the Westpac broking site has just got one page and you can toggle between local shares and your global shares, and
yes,
you get all the voting rights. It's just a standard share, but it's international.
Fantastic. And look, the great thing about the only wrinkle is I had to do this with NAB. There's a slight bit of faff where you've got to fill out a little bit more paperwork for the US tax system, because they will want to stab you on any dividends that you will get. You don't get stabbed on capital gains in America, because I think shares are capital gains free, but you will get stabbed some tax, American tax on dividends. The good news there is Tesla will not pay dividends for a very long time, and nor do they need to. For us long-term Tesla shareholders, we're just happy with their share price increasing from time to time, and that's good enough for us.
And share splits.
And share splits, of course, that's right. And Tesla does split. Americans just love high-value shares, so Tesla thinks nothing of their shares being worth many hundreds of dollars. In fact, they have rules against shares falling below $50, I think. They get kicked out of indices and all that sort of stuff. But again, this is not personal advice, but I can personally say I'm very happy with my shareholding. I'm very happy I invested in Tesla, and I'm happy to continue to do so. And speaking of which, Elon Musk at the last earnings call, the Q4 earnings call held for us last Thursday morning, he said that 2026 is going to be epic, and 2027 and 2028 are going to be ridiculous. And he then did say, and he said something, okay, I'll just wind back 2 seconds. A number of years ago, Elon Musk said, and I think Tesla's market capitalization was it was less than $100 billion, let's put it this way. He said at the time, and this was probably 2019, 2018, he said he sees a clear path for Tesla to become a $1 trillion company. And most people laughed and said, that's very brave for you to say that, when that was representing a 10x increase, a more than 10x increase in Tesla's share price at the time. And of course, we've now passed that $1 trillion mark twice. At the earnings call that Tesla held last week, Elon Musk said that there is a clear, albeit very difficult and challenging path for Tesla to become as valuable as the top 5 companies in the world combined. Now, just a couple of minutes ago, I ran that number, and that number of the current value of the top 5 companies in the world, their market capitalization totals about $23 trillion. Tesla's current market capitalization is about let's call it 1.25, 1.25 trillion. So that represents an 18x improvement in Tesla's market capitalization in the future. Now, he's probably referring to something like, within the next 10 years, which is a ridiculous achievement to make. But then Elon Musk is well known for ridiculous achievements. But that's not financial advice. That's him saying he sees a clear, albeit challenging.
Harold, I think he said, I can see a path. So
Yes.
he initially path, and then he said, corrected himself, and he said, challenge him, blah, blah. But then he said, I can see a path to Tesla being worth more than the top 5 most valuable companies combined.
Yeah, that is a path. In much the same sense that he said that a similar statement 6 years earlier, to go from less than 100 billion to 1 trillion.
Can I just say something on this subject? I must say I was waiting for this subject to come up about Elon Musk. Elon Musk has said many things in the past, and the Cybertruck is one of them. It has been coming for years and years. And I mean, I look at YouTube now and then, the people say it'll never happen. The self-driving thing has been supposed to be working for many years. It's not. I sort of doubt a bit that it is the wise thing to get into Tesla shares at the moment. Elon Musk has got to be one of the most hated people in the world at the moment, because of recent political developments. And I've been asking, I always thought I was a fan of Elon Musk. But what's happening recently, I must say, I'm going off the guy a bit, and I'm even worried. There's so much antagonism against Elon Musk. The sales are going, car sales are going down, the share price is going down. I'm even a bit worried that people might, decide, oh, he's got a Tesla. I don't like Teslas. And, do something nasty.
The best way to address this is in a few different parts. So firstly, the Cybertruck.
Harold, let me have a crack at this. Let me have a crack at this one. And
I'll give you a chance, but if we just break down a few of these things that you said, Stefan. So you said the Cybertruck is being promised as coming, and where is it? Well, it's being produced in mass numbers in the United States as we speak. So,
it's the best-selling truck.
Yeah,
it's the best-selling truck.
Yeah, EV ute or truck or whatever you want to call it, pickup truck in America. So, and by the way, the Model Y has been reiterated as the world's best-selling vehicle of any kind, electric,
I'm glad to hear that.
diesel, worldwide. That's in agglomerated world sales. The sales of the Model Y have exceeded any other model on Earth of any kind. So the other thing, so obviously the stock in Australia yet, and I have a reservation. Pete has a reservation. I'm sure several other people in this room have reservations and are yearning for the Cybertruck to come. The best information.
Well, it was here. There was a demo here in Perth. There was a demo car here in Perth for about 3 weeks.
I visited that, yeah.
Yeah. So I am led to believe that one of the impediments is there is an issue in Australia with compliance of the steer by wire. In other words, there's no permanent linkage or physical linkage between the steering wheel and the front wheels. However, all of these things are just technological advances that get accommodated in rules, in due course. But take it from me, I'm frustrated that the Cybertruck is not yet in Australia for me to buy and drive around Australia, which I would do immediately. Now, you obviously mentioned Elon Musk. Now, yes, Elon Musk is a terribly...
Well, no, hang on. There's another one. Stephen mentioned the full self-driving. So you might want to mention that it's coming to Austin.
Okay, so Elon Musk did announce that unsupervised full self-driving without a safety driver, so this is you hop in a car, it might not be a robo-taxi, it might just be a Model Y, but these will be owned by Tesla in the initial phase. A fully paid service like Uber will be opening in Austin, is planned to open in Austin in June. Now, one thing that none of us Australians have ever had the experience in, unless we literally went to America to do it, was to experience how supervised full self-driving drives in America. Because, like I said at the start of the show, it is completely different to what we experience as autopilot. Like so different, it's like chalk and cheese. So and that's difficult for us because when we see our cars do simple, frustrating things, we think, how the hell could this ever do it by itself? It's just not possible. The thing is, we are not experiencing what they already are in the States, and Tesla has announced, and of course, we can trust but verify. So the rubber will hit the road when or if this happens in June. But there is a line in the sand that's been drawn that says our plan is June in the city of Austin. And then the later plan later that year is to go into wider California. Now, I don't know whether that would be a statewide thing or initially to be in the hot spots of San Francisco and LA and then go spread out. But Tesla will obviously be very careful because 40,000 people in America are killed in car accidents. So that's one every few minutes by other humans. But of course, everyone remembers the very first self-driving car that killed someone. That was sadly, it was a homeless person pushing a push bike, I think it was, basically daring the car to stop. And unfortunately, the safety driver wasn't quite paying attention, and the car basically killed this errant pedestrian. But of course, that makes front page news. And if it's Tesla, of course, it'll make almost every page in the conventional newspapers news, because it's a machine killing a human one human as opposed to the 40,000 that are killed in America every year. So obviously there's, Tesla's going to be super careful. You then mentioned Elon Musk. Now, Elon Musk is undoubtedly at the moment one of the most polarizing. In fact, he is clearly in America public enemy number one, because in the political sphere, Donald Trump, who would otherwise be public enemy number one, at least to half of the Americans, is a lame duck president. His term of presidency will end in just under 4 years, whereas Elon Musk will be an ever-present presence. So, yes, he's divisive. I personally would wish he would concentrate on his companies because, as remarkable as he's really good at running Tesla and at helping out with SpaceX and the Neuralink and all the other businesses. And, I personally wished perhaps he wasn't so heavily involved in politics, but that's a personal thing. I do not project that personality or those feelings onto the car that I drive, because let's face it, Elon Musk didn't build my car. All of the 100,000 plus employees of Tesla built my car, but Elon Musk didn't build it. And I reject the notion that him being a CEO or a major shareholder of that company ought to stain my car or my choice to buy that car and use it. I just reject that. If you want to get to that extreme, you've got to say things like, well, what is the pedigree of Volkswagen? And yes, that's in the past.
Can I just say something? I agree with you. I still think Tesla is one of the best electric cars, all right? And I enjoy it very much. And I'm always in awe about its technical advantages and so on. But it is becoming more and more difficult because I've talked to people about Tesla and try and convince them how good it is and so on. That is becoming very difficult. Right?
Yes.
I've got friends who say, I'm not going to buy a Tesla because of
Can I
Elon
tell you
Musk.
why that is, Steve? But can I tell you why that is?
Yeah.
So think about it. So the mass media, the legacy media, so TVs, newspapers, radio, where do they get their money from? They get it from advertising. If you have a look at the ads on at 7:30 prime time, especially the high value ads, a lot of them are for car makers. Tesla has come in, and that advertising has gone down because their sales and mainly their profits have gone down. Now, that advertising has not been replaced by Tesla because Tesla famously has sold 5 million cars without spending a single cent on advertising, and then 6 million cars by only doing a few YouTube ads. So that's one thing. Then Elon has said a few years ago that he doesn't believe in advertising because he thinks it's trickery. Then he goes out and buys Twitter for $44 billion. And one of the reasons why he said he's buying Twitter is because the legacy media can't be trusted because it's in the pocket of advertisers. And then he said the role of a media editor is one that won't exist because on X, it's the people who decide what makes news because if you have a half-hour news bulletin, what you leave out is just as important as what you put in and where you put stories in and how much context you decide to provide and how much you don't. I mean, a clear example is, and Harold touched on this with autonomous cars, but we know that a Tesla is, depending on which study you believe, 1/10 or 1/100th of the chance of being on fire than an internal combustion engine car, which has got the word combustion in it. Yet when there is a Tesla that's on fire, I get people from Europe that I haven't heard from for 3 years ringing me, asking me if my cars are going to be all right. And then I have to remind them that there was several thousand other cars that were on fire that day. And the car that they drive, there was 100 of those cars that were on fire today. And I didn't ring them. So the media loves, the guy from Top Gear when he was in front of the UK Parliament, in front of the committee, he brought out, he used the example of one of the UK main papers and said, have a look at this. I can't remember the number, but it was like 30 or 40 of the last stories on EVs, and every single one was negative. Think about it. If you are the editor and if this guy says your role is not going to exist, if he is killing the very thing that you rely on for your living, and then he goes and insults the very thing that you rely on your living and says it's trickery, are you going to take kindly to him? No, you're not. And it's incredible how it's almost like taking the blue pill in the Matrix. It's incredible how much your eyes and my eyes have been open. And once you see it, you can't unsee the bias that you see in legacy media. And it's very subtle. It's sometimes it's blatant, but quite often it's very subtle. So whenever there's a negative story about Tesla, you always have Elon Musk there. It's always linked to him. Whenever there's a positive story about SpaceX or Tesla, Elon Musk is never mentioned. Whenever they're talking about EVs, you might get one or two shots of a Tesla. It's usually an older model, and it's usually far in the distance. But then you'll get your Polestar and you'll get your BYD all up front, the latest model, and you'll get the most curated video vision from the public relations department. So, it goes from subtle to blatant, but what I would argue is one of the reasons why some people are polarized by Elon Musk is it's not actually the man himself, it's actually the way he's portrayed in legacy media. And if you stop reading the legacy or continue reading that and watching that, but also supplement it with another source, which I would argue is much more much fairer and much more unbiased, which is X, and you have a look at some of the accounts there, and you put the two together, you'll, like I'm saying, you won't be able to unsee what you've seen. Look, I'll shut up now. It's rant over.
Yeah, I think, but look, I agree, Stefan. There's no doubt there are many people that detest many aspects of what Elon Musk is about in recent times. I think the key is you need to decouple that to the car. Like I said, just because Elon Musk is one of the founders of Tesla, is a great driving influence in the success of Tesla, that doesn't taint what the car is, regardless of whether you have a negative opinion of Elon Musk or not. I guess an interesting thing is I challenge anyone to list the CEOs or major contributors to the top 10 car makers. And the rhetorical question is, do they even care who those people are and what they get up to in either their personal or political lives? And yeah, I get that it's really easy for someone to say, look, I think Elon Musk is a tool and therefore I don't want to buy the car, or the car you're driving, oh, that's an Elon Musk car and therefore that car is lesser or something. It's tainted with their opinion of that person. And like I said, the most effective thing is to say, well, you don't think of Elon Musk as you're driving in your car. It wasn't built by him. It wasn't, his hands didn't touch that car. And in fact, you can guarantee that because those hands are all touched by Chinese car makers, because that's where all the Australian cars are made.
Yeah, look,
it can always be an excuse. Some people use it as an excuse, as a gotcha. It's like, oh yeah, but Elon Musk, and then you go, oh well, I don't know how to counter that. And in a sense, I'd suggest you don't need to bother. You say, look, the car is awesome, regardless. And there are a lot of, something I learned about Steve Jobs is he and he obviously ran an awesome company. And by the way, it's still awesome after the passing of Jobs. But I learned an interesting snippet, which was that apparently Steve Jobs never bathed. He believed that he would wash his clothes, but he would barely ever bathe ever. And apparently, people that were nearby him, that wasn't a very pleasant experience. Now, would that affect my purchase of an iPhone or whatever it was? I mean, no, because the product's still awesome. It's just humans are what they are, and people can have opinions about them. But yeah, I'd encourage anyone to try and decouple that. It's like I said,
but there's definitely no doubt that in the recent political developments, Musk has shown himself from a totally different side, which we haven't seen yet. And I always say he's a clever man. He must have some plan. What is his objective to the things that he is doing at the moment?
He has stated
strange.
He has absolutely stated it. It's very clear. His one plan, prime plan, is basically get to Mars. He has stated that everything he is doing is to make humans a multi-planetary species, because he is known what is called I think it's termed a long-termist, and that is a philosophy that says that the present conditions of it's appropriate to potentially sacrifice current conditions, living conditions, in favor of ensuring a more favorable future, deep future, into the deep future. And if that means compromising on the current circumstances, that's an appropriate thing to do, because people that are long-termists are concerned about the very long-term time frame of humanity. And Elon Musk has definitely effectively planted himself in that sort of thinking, which is very long-term thinking.
Okay.
So, but unfortunately, people like in American culture, they wear their political proclivities on their sleeve. They absolutely, which is not a very Australian and possibly not even a European thing. Most people in Europe and Australia sort of keep their political opinions, their staunchest political opinions, generally to themselves or to a clique of.
Depends on what part of Europe you're talking about, Harold.
Sorry, say that again, Pete.
What part of Europe you're talking about?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Stephen,
I'll say Western Europe. I'll say Western Europe.
Maybe there's something that people might agree with me is that Trump is probably the worst thing that has happened to America, to the world.
Look, well,
and Elon Musk helped the guy to get there.
Okay, so
one of the big points, I think, why is he doing this? Isn't he clever enough to see that this guy is an idiot and is going to upset a lot of people and a lot of things in the world? And he helped him get there. And the reason I think he helped him get there is because Trump is for reducing taxes for rich people. And maybe he saw a way of getting even richer by going for Trump and helping him get there.
Look, Elon. Okay, lastly, Elon Musk will be the world's first trillionaire. There's no doubt of that. And when you're at that sort of level of money, none of that matters. Taxes just don't matter. It really doesn't matter. However, I think we should limit discussion away from the politics because that can be very polarizing.
You're right.
It's not really. If you listen to what happened in the news tonight, there could be some very interesting things occurring in the very near future. Which, well, I didn't say it, but yeah. So, but I think it's a way to steer away from politics in this discussion. Suffice to say, there's going to be some very interesting times in the future, and like I said, Musk is actually public enemy number one because he will effectively politically outlive Trump, because Trump is, 2 weeks. He's already 2 weeks less than 4 years in office. So, but yeah, and like I said, Americans famously wear their political proclivities on their sleeves very proudly, and that's culturally not something that we're accustomed to. And but yeah, all the other stuff, I think we should sort of park that. We've gone over time.
Sorry
about
no.
Totally cool.
3 seconds. So, Stephen, so when you see something on the news about Elon Musk and you see a 5-minute piece on the news, do yourself a favour, jump on the internet and Google that piece and watch the video in full. And then watch back or try and recollect what you saw on the news, and you might find that what he said or what he did was completely taken out of context in the news. I'll give you one example. So, the most controversial thing that he's done in the last, couple of weeks was that what he's termed as the Roman salute, it was taken to be a,
salute, yes.
Yeah. But if you actually play the whole video and if you actually play the whole speech, and you can see that what he did is he put his hand on his heart first and he said, "My heart goes out to you." And yes, he's not the most coordinated person. I mean, all you have to do is watch him dance. But if you have a look at the reactions, so have a look at the reactions from some of the Jewish community, etc. None of that, none of those communities took that to be what the media said he was. If you just do literally just spend 5 minutes, and you can take it, there's on X, people have compared it, and they showed Obama, they showed Hillary Clinton, they showed Bill Clinton, they showed Harris, they showed everyone on the left side with their hands above their head, with their arms straight and their palm straight out. So you can take anything out of context, and they use that as an example. And that's and it's really when it first happened, every single station in Perth had it, and they all covered it without context, and they only showed and they didn't put the audio to it. They just showed the video of what he did. And then, even like the project, 10 days later, did a 10-minute story on a guy that sold his Tesla because of Elon Musk. But even in that whole interview, the guy himself admitted that he was selling the car because he had no need for a car anyway, because he was buying a scooter.
No.
But he's a YouTuber, and he used it as a chance to get views and everything, and to get on TV. So
I hear what you said, because I have read a couple of books from Elon Musk, and
he hasn't read it.
Things you hear in the media are sometimes totally contrary to what it says in the book, and you think either this book is all lies, or these media people are probably, So
follow the money. What incentive would the author of the book have to lie? What incentive would the autobiographer, putting his reputation as an autobiographer online, what incentive does he have for a lie? And then have a look at the traditional media. What incentives do they have? Advertising, their jobs, their existence, their livelihood. The number one news app is X, and it's gaining all the time. And traditional media is losing advertising and dying away. So they're resorting to desperate techniques to stay alive. But I'll shut up.
Let's move on. Mark, you've got your hand up before we go, because we're getting late.
And I'm going to take this well out of the previous discussion. So
awesome.
The holiday update came through on the 22nd of December, and since then we seem to have been parked. There's been no update now for about 40 odd days.
Me too.
And I'm just wondering, are we sitting in a dead end version at the moment? Is it something that's how would we based on your experience, how would we normally catch up?
No. So it's not that we're behind. So obviously the holiday update is something that's long looked forward to. They usually hold back a few little quirky features to release during the holidays. Actually, in the deep past, it used to just be a different Christmas tune thing that you could do, and a few other little bits and pieces. And some of the things they get in the States that we don't get here, and whatever. At any other time, updates usually come about, and you'll see quite a few of them from time to time. That the only comment is minor
Oh
update.
yeah, no. I'm just going to jump in for a sec, Harold. I've gone through each of the major releases in the last 2 years that I've had my Tesla. And when I'm saying about that, we're talking like a 2024 dot, whatever that number is. So it's a major release. I'm not talking about the bug fixes along the way. And there seems to be an average of around about 40 days. So it's sometimes greater, sometimes less. But there seem to be a lot of releases going out at the moment for other regions, and whether they're trying to with FSD.
So you mean the States?
Well, they're up to 2025.2.3 in some areas, and some others have got 2024.44.30, I think it is. So there's a couple there which may be Cybertruck related, but it just appears that especially after the last time, we were very, very late to the party coming into the holiday release, and it looks almost like we're actually on our own brunch with New Zealand, South Korea, and I think Thailand. I think
because
the other places.
We're a right-hand drive market, and
but that didn't actually apply with the UK before. Places that were left-hand drive got it before.
Okay, so the thing is, in the States, there are a lot of releases at the moment because they are tied with FSD unsupervised. So there's a lot of iteration going on with that. which obviously we see none of that. Our cars do not have anything to do with FSD unsupervised whatsoever. At best, they might have things like the cars have been used for many years to actually accumulate edge cases. So the cars are actually told to look out for certain circumstances, such as, I don't know, bikes running across the road or crashes and all sorts of weird and wonderful things. So undoubtedly, the States is for the time being going to have a lot of intensive software updates, even if they're just dot updates, because of the rapidity. Sorry, the rapidity of upgrades for FSD unsupervised, which we see none of that whatsoever, nor Europe. And as a matter of fact, I think it was even Cybertrucks, I think, got their holiday update at a similar time we did. So they were being held back, and there was, to the frustration of Cybertruck owners in the States. So the rest of the world, or we, are not the exceptions. It's just that we obviously saw all the Americans, well, we figured we saw most of them getting updates. But yeah, the Cybertruck was a notable exception. I think they might have got it the day before we did. So, but just because there's an absence of updates doesn't mean they're ignoring us or leaving us alone or anything like that. In fact, I do recall a gentleman on Twitter or X. He has either a Model S or a Model X. His name's Arm, or he's known as 13 Arm.
Yeah, 13
He said,
Arm.
"Oh, great to see a final update on my Model S," or whatever it was. He just got one, and he was pretty happy about it. Don't know what the update was, but so because he was feeling quite left out, as do some of those legacy car owners for the Model S's and X, where they're Autopilot 2.5 or Autopilot 2 computers. So, there's very little to upgrade. So, look, I wouldn't worry too much. I totally agree with you. The last time I think any of us in the room got an update was the Christmas update and had crickets. Our versions are .44. That's the 44th week of last year. So that's whatever that is, 10, 11, 12 weeks ago. That's a fairly long time. Those big the big week releases, they do come less often. You get point releases like 44 point whatever. But yeah, look, I wouldn't worry too much. Suffice to say, and it will probably be this year, and hopefully be sooner than later. Once we do get FSD supervised approved in Australia, then I dare say we'll get a lot of updates. Whether or not your car actually has FSD, whether you've paid for it or not, because effectively what will happen is all cars will have it, it just won't be used. But it'll be in the background doing shadow tasks of, because what these cars do, even in autopilot, is they will do what they're doing. They'll drive the way they think they should drive, and they will compare that with what they should have done, because they'll detect where there's an error, where there's a user input, and that will be flagged as, well, that was a variance to what the driver expected, and that data gets sent up the line. So,
and I picked up on the dotted lines earlier on, your dotted lines comment. Yeah, so that was something I immediately looked at.
It happens all the time. And look, if I was really effluent, I might, and I knew the person next to me, I might let my car go and see what it does, and see if it does slam into the car next to me. I hope it wouldn't, but I'm just not going to do that experiment. But look, I think once we get FSD unsupervised, we're going to get a whole ton of updates. And after all, I guess you could say, if the car is basically, for want of a better term, running perfectly with no need to revise it, then you won't get updates unless there's a new feature that's added, which I guess will increasingly become less often, because the car will have everything it possibly we can think of.
The latest version has preconditioning for non-Tesla high chargers. So that would probably include ones like ChargeFox, which would be quite useful.
Yes and no, and we'll have to wrap the show up right after this. But
Yeah.
to be honest, I've had my car in a fairly cold condition and gone to a Kempower charger, which you'll only, even a low state of charge, get a maximum of about 115 kilowatts. And I've never seen that speed reduced due to the car being too cold.
Okay.
So to
Okay.
be honest, look, it's great that they have it, but I'd be inclined generally to turn it off if you could, or just not tell the car you're going there, because the car's actually burning a bit of battery energy to heat itself up. And in my opinion, most of the time that is pretty much unnecessary for non-superchargers. But that's personal opinion.
All right.
Alrighty, a blockbuster and towards the end controversial show, but it's appropriate that we don't run too late. In the old days, we used to go bigger than Ben-Hur, but I think we're all getting a bit older now, so we need our beauty sleep, and I certainly know I need mine. So, Pete, how would you round out an even controversial show and awesome one such as this, as if I didn't already know? Oh, Pete, are you there with us?
No, he's gone to sleep.
He's frozen.
Lost his internet. Unless he comes back in the next 2,000 milliseconds, which he didn't, what he would say is, as always, stay safe, stay sustainable, and stay ahead of the curve. To which I would retort, and the best way to do that is join Tokwa. The best way to do that is buy a Tesla, join Tokwa, and ask us anything about accelerating the world's transition to sustainable energy. Have a wonderful week, everyone, and I really do look forward to seeing you on next week's episode of Ask Us Anything. Good night, everyone.
See you guys. Sorry, my video dropped out.